So for tonight's questions, I'm going to ask some questions that we didn't get to. Work-life balance, gender dynamics, mentorship, and what is there anything unique about New Hampshire?
I think one of the things that, as I looked back and I thought about it, you have to take each chapter as it comes. So for years, my husband and I both worked full-time, and then we had these kids, and when I had my first child, I did, take Fridays off, which if anyone's done that 4-day work week, that's a joke, because you just work as many hours in 4 days as you used to in 5 days. But it made me feel better with this new little baby at home. And then as opportunities continued to come my way, including this one, to run the organization, something had to give. And so in my life, as unexpected as it was, my husband quit his job, became Mr. Mom, and all of a sudden I'm the breadwinner, which was so not part of the plan, but it made sense, and that's been our division of labor. So I think all anyone can do in a family unit or any kind of social unit is evaluate what's in front of you and figure out what's going to work at that point in time. I also think you have to draw the line in corporate America. The company will take every single thing you will give and more. So if you don't know when to say when, why would the company ever stop asking, right? We just kind of laugh about an Anthem vacation, which means you're taking your conference calls from a prettier location. That's basically what it's like. But I try not to. I'll be on vacation next week, and I'm going to try really hard, to be reasonable about it, and learning to say no. For me, the hardest thing is, as Linda said, we're all involved in a lot of extracurricular, extra company things. But I have to say no to far more than I say yes to, and I feel guilty about it every single time. Will you run this heart ball? Will you do this? Will you do that? And you have to learn to say no.
I think as a manager of an organization, it's part of our responsibility to make sure that our staff feel that they have permission to say, I'm with my family this weekend, or I was told when I moved to New Hampshire that sports were that if my daughter was playing field hockey, that I was obligated to go to the game. And of course, she never played any sports, but I liked the idea of that, that I have spent most of my professional career in New York City, and it's a really exciting, fantastic place to live, but work-life balance is like, what's that? And I think New Hampshire, it's a little bit more civilized, but I think we do all work an awful lot. So I guess the one thing that I want to say is just, as the manager, you set the tone. And if you give your team permission to take the time that they've earned, the vacation time that they've earned, or you're approving timesheets and you see somebody in 2 weeks has worked 108 hours, you need to go talk to that person because it's way too much.
Growing up in the banking world, traditionally all male, and in every job I had, especially early on, I was always the first female. So I experienced this gender. And fortunately, the companies I was with were always looking to promote women, and oh, here's a live one, let's give her a shot at this. She's a rarity, let's see what she can do. And there was a particular time I became a branch manager in Cranston, Rhode Island, which is very ethnic, heavy Italian, and it was the word on the street that this new young woman was there, and how well will she do? So it did inspire me to really show I could do it. But one thing, to all the women in the group, I think, and this might be a little bit of a stereotype, but I think oftentimes when we're asked to do something, we think, I don't know if I can do it. I'm not 100% sure. Let me think about it. I like the comfortable place that I am right now. And I think men, my male peers, would be like, go for it, jump right in. So I would say if someone taps you on the shoulder and thinks you're ready, don't doubt yourself. Just jump in and say yes, be brave. I think that's really important.
Often when I'm in a meeting or at an event or doing anything, I'm often the only person of color or the only woman in there. And yes, I'm totally always aware of my role as either a person of color or a woman. And there are things that you notice about yourself and how you're just really particular about certain things. Like if I'm in a meeting and they're all men, and which I run a lot of meetings when I was at the University of New Hampshire, I was always asked to take the notes. And I said, no, I'm not the secretary. I'm not taking notes. They believe that. So there are particular things that I know that you would be looked upon to be doing this. And you're always the person, either as the woman in this group, that they just assign that role to you. And you have to be aware of those things, or else then you fall back into being that. Or if you're not aware, you just go ahead and move it. But we have to step up our own game when it comes to any of the isms so that we don't fall in that trap.
I think that whether it's a gender issue or a race issue, if you're the only person of that ilk in the room, then in addition to what you've said, you have to find your voice. Because in a way in that room, you're representing everybody. So be sure not to keep a seat warm. Be sure to find that voice and hone that voice. You talked about that. Be very aware of yourself, but find that voice inside you to represent something, whatever it is, whatever the issue is, so that you make an impression on them. And if you do, you'll be invited back to more. And you can invite some of your friends to more. I think I'm a nurse, so you might say, well, that's easy for me. It's a female-dominated profession. But it's in a healthcare environment where men have a lot of the power. And I found quickly that I was often the only nurse invited to a meeting, and that I would be assigned to those roles unless I found my voice to do something else. And I think that's why I keep getting invited back, as probably does everybody on the stage right now.
Find somebody who you really look up to, who can help you grow as a person, professionally and personally. I think it's just a wonderful experience.
Does your mentor have to be a woman?
I don't think so. No, I do not feel as though that's the case. I feel though as though if you can find somebody who, you really look up to, because, and we talked a lot today about be yourself. Sometimes when you're 20 I have college children, you don't necessarily know exactly who you are quite yet. However, you may know what you would like to be, or who you would like to be, or how you would like to be. So it's those types of things that you would look for in a mentor.
And I would encourage young people, it can be scary to go approach someone, and I can remember thinking, there's no way I'm important or cool enough to go talk to that person. And you would be shocked at how receptive people are. I really think that human beings in general, we love to help other human beings. And if you approach someone and say, hey, I'm really curious, or I liked what you said, or I found your career path fascinating, I bet they would be so honored and touched and would love to help you. And I think it just takes opening up and having the courage to step forward and say, could I talk to you for a few minutes? Would you like to have a cup of coffee? Could I just email you and get your advice? And they would be honored to help you. And you just have to have that initial courage to say, we're all human beings. It's okay to approach anybody, no matter what level they're on. And I'm sure that they would love to hear from you and would try to help you to the best that they can.
New Hampshire is a small town, and the longer you're in it, the smaller it gets. And to me, life is about connections. And I have found that people are more than willing and wanting to help. You just need to let them know how.
Yeah, there's definitely this feeling in New Hampshire that you can do and accomplish just about anything. I think it's a special place. For the winery in particular, it was easy to want to situate LaBelle Winery in New Hampshire because we're so unique. So that gives us this little edge in New Hampshire. And people say, a winery in New Hampshire? Like, this isn't Napa. So for me, I feel like, no, I'm not in wine country, but New Hampshire's given me a home for my business that makes us a unique player in a very crowded market. And that's been very helpful to me. But also, in New Hampshire, you have this ability to develop these wonderful networks of people, like all of the women here on this stage, and it's a very supportive community, so once you kind of can get plugged into that community and start to draw on all of the talents and all of the amazing benefits of the wonderful people in New Hampshire, and you develop partnerships with wonderful people. I see some of my partners in the audience. The McGowan Fine Art Gallery is one of them. You develop these wonderful partnerships, and there's this openness and willingness of businesses to work together that makes it a very special place, I think, to start a business.
That finding your voice thing, which I'm going to say in my own way, sometimes I still do that now, and I get so mad at myself. When you're sitting in a meeting or something, and you have this like great thought, and you kind of don't say it, or you delay saying it, and then someone else says it, and you're like, I should have just said that. So I so wish I had done that more when I was younger, because I realize now that I was not necessarily spot on every time, but definitely, you know, right in there. And I wish I had started doing that earlier, because I feel like I'm doing what I want to do now, but I just think about if I had done that every time at every stage, my confidence level would have been so great so early. So I would encourage any age person, if you're thinking something and you're in the conversation and you're at the table, to participate and say it and be part of it.
A couple things. One would be, don't ever let somebody tell you that you can't, ever. That was so important to me in my youth and in my adulthood.